the intro. You want to do it, Eloy?
Do what? Do I got to talk?
You want to talk?
No.
Shy?
Yeah, I'm shy.
He said, yeah, I'm shy. What's going on, Faded Culture? I'm Adrian Barone, and we're back with another tutorial. What happened? You good?
Yeah.
I thought you were gonna hit me, dog. I was like, what's going on, Faded Culture? I'm Adrian Barone, and we're back with another tutorial. Today we got my buddy Eloy on the chair. We're gonna be giving him a bald mid-fade, and then we're gonna leave the length on top, and I'm gonna go ahead and run y'all down on how I point cut and add texture to the top. So stay tuned, guys. If you're not subscribed already, please go ahead and do so. And congratulations to the winners of last week's video that my brother posted. If y'all didn't see that already, I'm gonna post it somewhere on one of these corners. Be sure to check that out, guys. Stay tuned for the next one. We're gonna be doing one at 500K. So, like I said, if you're not subscribed already, please do so, and let's get to it. Before we start, guys, all the steps for this haircut will be in the description down below in case y'all want to follow along that way. Along with all the tools that we use in this video will be in the description down below in case y'all want to check them out, guys. Alright guys, like every tutorial, I always like to start them off by combing the hair in its neutral position. Little tip I have for y'all is go ahead and damp the comb just a little bit and then run that through. It's just gonna help you slide the comb easier through the hair. Just make sure that you're combing it in the direction that it naturally lays. Take into consideration the cowlick area. Just go ahead and run your comb through it. And again, this is just before every haircut. So his hair is a little longer on the sides, and when this happens, I like to debulk the sides first just a little bit and then come in and put my guidelines just so I can see them that much better. So to debulk, I'm gonna go ahead and use my 1.5 guard with the lever completely open and begin the process. Guys, now that we're done debulking, I'm gonna go ahead and come in and set in my first guideline using no guard on the clipper, and we're gonna go ahead and close the lever all the way. And then I'm gonna set in my first guideline right under that temple peak area. It's gonna come towards the ear, and we're gonna start dropping it as we approach the back of the ear. And the tip I have for y'all guys is always keep a small brush on your opposite hand. After every few strokes, go ahead and re-clean the surface. All right guys, we're done with our first guideline. I highly suggest that you always step in the front of your client, view him from the front, and make sure that the guideline aligns evenly on both ends. And as for the next guideline, I'm gonna go ahead and open my lever completely open, and we're gonna come up about a finger's width and continue the process. So like I mentioned, we're coming up about a finger's width. All right, so we're done with that step completely. Just make sure that your guidelines run parallel to one and another. That way your fade is consistently even throughout. For the next step, I'm gonna use my 1 guard, and we're gonna keep the lever all the way open. All right guys, so now we're done with that step. Next, we're gonna throw on the number 2 guard, still leave the lever completely open. As I'm setting up the canvas, all that changes is the guards, the lever stays open completely. And now instead of a small brush, I'm gonna switch it for a comb. Instead of brushing, I'm gonna go ahead and recomb the hair, neutralize it, and go over it as many times as I need to. Done with the number 2. Now for the last guard that I'm gonna be using is a number 3. Like I mentioned, lever's gonna stay completely open. After this, we're just gonna go ahead and come in and use clipper over comb. So now we're done setting up the canvas with guards. I'm gonna go ahead and finish connecting the sides to the top with clipper over comb. I highly suggest you use a white one so you can see the hair come through. It's easy to see the contrast. One thing I do want to bring to the attention, guys, is that you're gonna see the guidelines up to the number 2 guard from the 2 to the 3. If you were easy with the wrist, it should blend right into it. There should not be a guideline between those 2 numbers. Now we're done setting up the canvas completely. Now to work our way down, you should have 3 guidelines, guys. You should have the first one that we created with the 0, the second one that we created with the lever fully open, and the third one that we created with the number 1 guard lever fully open. Everything else, like I said, if you were easy with the wrist, it should just blend right in. And one thing I do want y'all to take account is that since he does have his hair dyed, it is slightly difficult to see the guidelines, but as you're setting them in, you should always be aware of how far apart they are and where they are in the head. So we're gonna start with that top guideline and work our way down. I'm gonna go ahead and use my 1.5 guard and close the lever just slightly, putting it into a 3/4 position. It's basically somewhere between halfway and fully open. We're gonna go ahead and attack that top guideline, using mainly just the corners of the clipper to attack these guidelines, guys. We're done with that step. So now for the second guideline, working our way down, which is this one right here. I'm gonna go ahead and use my half guard, and we're gonna leave the lever in that 3/4 position. One thing I do want to mention, guys, right here, the reason I'm working kind of in a forward direction is because the grain is working its way towards the back. So I'm just making sure that I'm cutting against it. And for this step, guys, it is creating a faint line right above it, but do not take this guard up any higher, as I will come back right now with my 1 guard and remove that. So like I mentioned, that step was gonna create a faint line right above it. So now we're gonna throw on the number 1 guard, leave the lever in that 3/4 position, and continue the process. So now for the last line, we're gonna go ahead and use a 3-step process to attack it. I'm gonna go ahead and start with the lever completely closed and then open it halfway and finish it off with the lever completely open. I'm gonna go ahead and work on sections at a time for this last step, as this last line is very tedious. So I'm gonna focus on just the right side of his head and then move on to just the back side and then finish off with just the left side. So yeah, let's get to it. Using just the corners of the clippers, guys, take each of these notches up just slightly. So now open the lever halfway. And finally, guys, lever completely open. Notice how I'm only using basically just the last tooth of the clipper. And this just ensures that I remove these dark areas without taking the fade up any higher than I need to. All right, guys, we're done with that 3-step process. There is some touch-up work that I see that needs to be done, but I'm gonna go ahead and continue with this 3-step process around the head and come back at the end to do the touch-up work.
Got it. Got it.
All right, guys, we're almost done with the fade. Now I'm gonna continue with this bottom side of the hair. I'm gonna go ahead and use my trimmer in a forward position just to get that much closer to the scalp. And at the very, very end, I'll come back in and do any touch-up work if needed. So right here, I am using my trimmer in a forward position like I mentioned. And yes, they are 0 gapped as well. All right, guys, now that I'm done using my trimmer in that forward position, I'm gonna go ahead and start removing the bottom hair. And as I'm doing that, you're gonna see how there's a faint line that distincts from the bottom to the fade. And that's basically gonna be used as my guideline for the electric shaver. So now I know exactly how high up to take that electric shaver. So now that we're done removing all that bottom hair, now to use the electric shaver. One thing I recommend, guys, as we approach the faint line that we created, Go ahead and turn your shaver around, use it as if it was a pair of clippers, using mainly the corners of it to attack and finish that, just so we don't take the fade up any higher than we need to. For the electric shaver, guys, a tip that I do have is when you're done shaving it, just use the back of your fingers and try to feel for any prickly hairs that still may be standing out or just the direction of the grain, and make sure that you are shaving against it. We're done with the fade completely. Now, just to do any touch-up work, you're gonna wanna go ahead and view him either from the mirror or take a step back just to get a different perspective and try to see any imperfections in the fade. Right here, I see a little dark area. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna slap on the half guard in that 3/4 position. And that's gonna be a rule of thumb, guys. If you feel that you need to open the lever or close the lever slightly, then go ahead and do so. We're done with the fade. Now to add a little bit of texture on top. Go ahead and slightly damp the hair. And using my faded culture matte black shears, coming soon. We're gonna start at the very front, pick up our first section, all the way from the grain though, because I wanna chop as much as I can, coming in an angled direction to create these peaks and valleys. Continue the process, moving sideways, again, grabbing the hair from the grain. At a 45-degree angle. As you approach the cowlick area, instead of coming in at a 45-degree angle, I like to do my texture a little bit more upright. And that's just because this cowlick area has a tendency of sticking up more. I don't want to create those deep valleys, and I don't want those hairs to just stick up from the back. So to blend in the beard, I'm gonna use a reverse process, starting with my number 1 guard, lever open. I'm gonna go ahead and follow that by closing the lever completely, remove the guard, and then again, like I said, now it's gonna be in reverse using that 3-step process, starting with the lever open, halfway, and then close. Alright guys, usually clients with very coarse facial hair, I like to use my electric shaver on there before I use my straight razor. Alright guys, as for the neckline area, I like to start about a finger's width from the Adam's apple, starting from the center and working my way to one side, and then proceed from the center and work your way to the opposite side. Oh shit. All right guys, here I'm just inserting my blade into our Faded Culture matte razors, which you can find at fadedculture.co, link down below. Highly suggest you check them out, guys. I really love the contrast from the matte to the razor. It really does help when it comes down to shaving. Applying a little bit of shave gel, guys. And once you're done applying the shave gel, I suggest that you run a little bit of water over the same areas just to help preserve the life of the shave gel. All right guys, when it comes to shaving, I always like to start with the thickest areas first. So in this case, we're gonna start with the mustache area, or his, 'cause that's the thickest. And ask your client to pull his lip in, and then with your opposite hand, help stretch that skin out, and then begin to shave. Right on time. We're done with the fade. Now to dust them off. Always try to dust your client off as much as possible, guys. You want them to get off the chair and go about their day without having all this hair on them. Use a blow dryer. Yeah, if the blow dryer doesn't do it, guys, just go ahead and take your client in the shower with you. I mean, you know, it helps. Customer service does come first, so go ahead and do so. We're gonna finish off the fade, guys. We're gonna finish off the style, adding a little bit of matte pomade. You're gonna get about a dime size of product, guys. Really emulsify it in your hands where it almost disappears. That way you don't got the clumps of product all over their hair. And then just run it through the surface in multiple directions, just so we make sure we get it all in there. And then you finish it off by styling it. All right guys, we're pretty much done with the fade. We did a bald mid fade, added a little bit of texture by using the point cutting technique. And yeah, as you can see, this was a very difficult canvas. I don't know if Eloy was dropped as a baby or, I don't know, very difficult canvas, but we got it done, guys. Bald mid fade. I hope y'all enjoyed it. Let us know down in the comments below any future haircuts y'all would like to see on this channel, guys. Please give it a thumbs up and do not forget to subscribe. Again, this is Faded Culture. I'll see you on the next one. Peace.